Builder. Panasonic last week announced that they are creating 2 full-frame cameras, possibly a third. One's photography based at 47 megapixels. The other one's a hybrid at 24 megapixels. It's going to use the Leica L mount. It has 2 card slots, one's an SD, one's an XQD. There's going to be IBIS as well as dual IS on the sensor. We don't know about price, and we don't really know about which video codec they're going to allow us to shoot in. Even though they didn't say a lot, I think they're actually hinting at creating the best mirrorless filmmaking camera ever. Done. Roll that intro. What's up, everybody? You're watching Too Long Didn't Read Filmmaker, where the answers comes first, the reasons come last, but we are constantly and always still learning. So this year has been absolutely insane when it comes to camera announcements and camera releases. And last week is no different because Panasonic finally threw in their chip for 2018. They announced that they are creating a full frame camera. Now, this is just a tech announcement. All the cameras are not in production or anything. They say they're going to formally announce it sometime next year. Now, this is absolutely insane because for a while people were just saying, man, if Panasonic would just make a full frame video camera, it would just completely destroy Sony, probably. Now, I was part of the camp that said, guys, are you nuts? Panasonic would never make a full frame camera because they are so heavily invested in micro four thirds. But color me wrong, because they are indeed working on it and they are coming at it hard. I think they're gonna try to dethrone Sony as best as they can. So without further ado, this week I'm gonna be talking about what they have told us, and then the main section of the video is me looking at what they've said, looking at what the company has done, and then I think they're actually hinting at some things, and if they actually do it, this video camera will be a narrative filmmaker or documentary filmmaker's dream. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, real quick, let's just get through a couple things that they've said that I don't think really leads to anything. So they have 2 card slots. They're not dual SD card slots. One is an XQD and then the other one is an SD card slot. It has a 3-axis screen, which is kind of interesting. It looks like it folds out kind of like Sony, but it also flips towards the handle instead of flipping out the other way. So if you're doing this for vlogging, it's not gonna work, but it's a very interesting design, and I kind of actually like it to a certain degree because sometimes when it flips out, it's gonna hit that HDMI port, and this design allows you to not hit the HDMI port and allows you to look at it from a lower angle. So I actually do like this design since I don't really swing out the monitor anyways. Now they're gonna be using the Leica L mount, I believe. Now this mount is actually slightly shorter than micro four thirds. That's a key thing there, remember that. They also said there's a new generation of their DFD autofocusing system. Now, whether or not this is finally gonna get it to match the Sony, we don't know, but if they do get there, awesome. As far as the sensor is concerned, yes, there is IBIS, yes, there is dual IS, and it's going to be capable of shooting at 4K 60p in full frame mode. And then there's also 2 sensors they've developed. One is a high resolution one for photographers at 47 megapixels, and then the other one is part of the hybrid line, which is at 24 megapixels. Now, as far as pricing goes, there's really not a whole lot that they've said or hinted at, but if I had to guess, it might be anywhere between $2,500 to $3,000. $2,500 might actually be too cheap, I feel, so it might actually be closer to $3,000. We don't know, we'll find out next year. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's talk about what they've said, then I'll look into their company's past, and then what I believe they might actually be hinting at, because if they actually go this route, these full frame Panasonic camera could literally be the one camera that everyone wants for their videography. So let's talk about it real quick. They've announced 2 models. One is obviously for photographers, 47 megapixels. The next one is a hybrid at a respectable 24 megapixels. What I believe they are hiding or hinting at is there's actually going to be a 3rd model, and that 3rd model is obviously going to be for video. The reason I'm saying this is because the GH5 came out and we thought, you know, that is it. But then the G9 came out, and then the GH5S came out, and I think, and they all pretty much share, and they all share the same bodies. So I think it makes sense that they're going to do it for the full frame line as well. The reason they haven't talked about this theoretical third video one is because I think they're still developing the sensor for a very specific reason. So let's talk about that real quick. The new mount, or the old mount that they're using, is the Leica L mount. The mount is actually very, very close to the same flange distance as a Micro Four Thirds mount. So in theory, if they do create an adapter that allows you to mount your Micro Four Thirds lenses to your new Panasonic full frame body and allow you to communicate with it, then they are forced to have a Micro Four Thirds mode. So you have a full frame mode, you have a Micro Four Thirds mode. What's not to say that they will also include a Super 35 mode right in the middle. And if that is the case, then this new sensor cannot be the same type of megapixels as Sony, because they need to make sure that when you're in Micro Four Thirds mode, it has to at least match the GH5S in terms of performance. So think about that for 1 second. If you have those three modes, and you are a narrative filmmaker or even documentary filmmaker, for me, I shoot basically between 40 millimeters to 100 for my narrative work. That seems to be the range that I stay in. So if I bought this theoretical full frame camera and had a 50 millimeter lens, in full frame mode, I'm at 50 millimeters. I can work with that. I love it. I actually really love 50 millimeter. If I want to jump into portrait, okay, let's get that background compression. I got to step back a little bit. Let's go into Super 35 mode. Boom, I'm at about a 75 millimeter equivalent. Okay, now I need to get to that telephoto end. Let's go to Micro Four Thirds mode. My 50 millimeter effectively becomes 100 millimeters. So that one lens basically carries my entire range. Obviously I can't go in between, but can you imagine if you can shoot an entire video with one lens and never taking it off, and all you do is just use like a function button to jump between the three modes super quick? That would be insane. And that's why I think they're developing a different full frame sensor, probably somewhere between 16 and 15 megapixels is my best guess, so that your full frame still is lower megapixel to get the most amount of light. And then when you do go all the way down to Micro Four Thirds, you're at least where the GH5S is in terms of pixel density. So if that is the case, Panasonic, that would be amazing, and it would literally cement my move into the full frame lineup just to get one lens and be able to shoot all my movies with literally that one lens. Now, the next thing is there is IBIS. Now, let's take a look back. GH5S, they took away the IBIS because the IBIS of the GH5 was a problem for certain situations where the sensor does shift a little bit. So I think this video version, the reason they haven't said anything yet is because they're also trying to figure out and develop a true locking system for that sensor. So if you do need that sensor to stay in place, they're gonna find a way to literally lock it where it should be. And if that's the case, then this video version is literally everything we wanted in terms of it being with an IBIS and without, and it will perform magnificently in both modes. The last thing about this whole theoretical sensor thing and the video oriented one, obviously this processor is going to have to be a lot more powerful than the GH5 and the GH5S. We already know that in full frame it can hit 4K 60p. So let's say Super 35 allows you slow-mo 4K 96 frames a second, and then when you go down to Micro Four Thirds mode, you can hit 4K 120. I'm wondering if this could potentially be a thing, that obviously the less of the sensor you use, the faster you can shoot in terms of frames per second. If that is a thing, again, this video version will be absolutely insane. You have high resolution 4K video. You are allowed to jump between 3 different modes for whatever lenses you happen to be using. The IBIS will then lock in place so that they make everyone happy with that one camera. And then slow motion. If you need slow motion, and you need really fast one to be able to jump into the Micro Four Thirds mode and still get a nice, crisp, smooth 4K 120 frames, Panasonic, if this is what you're doing, do it. Okay, that is by far the most exciting thing here. Now the last one is we really don't know what video codec they're gonna allow us to record in. It's something that they completely just, evaded the question and said, we're just gonna give you the best one possible. What does that mean? We don't know. However, if we take a look at what card slots they've given us the SD and then they've given us an XQD. And the XQD has a significantly higher reading and writing protocol in terms of its speed, so that's kind of a hint. There's that USB-C port that was really underutilized in terms of the GH5 and GH5S, and they know we're talking about it. So that is another potential avenue for what they're trying to tell us. Again, if they make a video version, we might potentially see some kind of uncompressed codec, and that's why they can't tell us, because they don't even know if the video version is going to be developed in time or what have you. So if that's the case, it'd be awesome to see ProRes. It would be very interesting if they give us some kind of raw recording ability, because if they give us those two in the video version, then they're literally not only taking a stab at Sony, but they're also taking a stab at Blackmagic Design. And I don't really know if Panasonic sees Blackmagic Design as a threat, but if they do and they're really trying to take a stab at both of them, awesome. Because again, if it's somewhere between 3,000, oddly enough, I would actually go with the Panasonic over the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, especially if that ProRes or some flavor of RAW is in there. So what's the bottom line here? The bottom line is that Panasonic entering the full frame game is extremely exciting, because a lot of us have been thinking, well, should I go Sony or should I go GH5? But now they're closing that gap. You can either go with the GH line or you can go with this new S line. And not only that, if you listen to everything I talked about in terms of the theoretical video full frame version, the fact that it's gonna have a lower megapixel count for better low light, the fact that maybe they're gonna create an adapter so you can use your Micro Four Thirds lenses, and because of that, they have a full frame shooting mode, a Micro Four Thirds shooting mode, and theoretically they could add a Super 35 mode. You can take a 50mm lens, shoot in 50mm at full frame, shoot at 75mm equivalent in Super 35, shoot at 100mm equivalent in Micro Four Thirds, all in 4K at a nice crisp 60p. But if you continue to go down to the Micro Four Thirds, it's using less processing power, so you potentially could have 4K at 120 frames a second if you go into that mode. If that's the case, awesome. They already knew that the GH5's IBIS was awesome, but for certain rigging instances, for whatever they're filming, they say, no, we need a sensor that literally stays in place, and that's why the GH5S doesn't have it. What's not to say that the new video version will create a new sensor lock mode, or what mechanic, whatever you want to call it, that literally locks the sensor right there. If that's the case, then that video-centric full frame camera could literally be the video camera for 2019 or whenever they release it. So this is really exciting. I know they haven't announced any of those things I talked about, and the little announcement they did give is leading me to be quite excited. So all I can say is, guys, maybe bug Panasonic, or maybe Panasonic will see this video, I don't know, but if Panasonic, if you see this and this is what you're doing, do it. Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. You're literally going to create a camera that I believe for the first time is the perfect camera for documentary filmmakers and indie narrative filmmakers like myself. So please make it. And hey, that's it for this week, everybody. I know everything here is more based on speculation because they really didn't tell us a whole lot, but what do you guys think? Do you think that they might actually be working on a third version for video, and everything I talked about, does that sound plausible? Is there something that I might have missed in my thoughts that you think, no, they might actually could do something like this? Leave it down in the comments below. You know I love talking with you guys. And until then, like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next week.